You're following Jonathan Bell. I mean, we're talking about a player drain possibly here, the best young players going to England to pick up the big money. Is that a possibility?
For me, actually, personally, no, I couldn't really, actually. When I'm studying, actually, I suppose at Queen's University, and it's hard to move courses. Maybe in a couple of years' time, if there was that, as in, if I was doing medicine and got a job over there, but now, no, I don't think I would take it at the moment.
Neil, would you be tempted?
If the right offer came along, I think I would.
Right, Jim McDowell, let me come to you, sir. You used to play a bit. What do you make of all this pay for play, Jim?
I think if we're talking about structures here, Jackie, I think we're talking about the future of the game, and no one has really addressed as yet the morality or the immorality of what has happened here. This is a great game. This was an amateur game. There are people sitting up here who would have paid to play for Ireland. I would have paid money to put on the green shirt, to put on the white shirt of Ulster, with the red hand on it, the green shirt with the shamrock on it. I would gladly have paid money to have that honour. And I don't know where that has disappeared. I mean, what's this being led by? Is it being led by greed or need? What's happening here?
Well, who's taking us down this road?
Well, I think it's, well, the Southern Hemisphere. We've heard from John Connolly. The Southern Hemisphere have led us down the road, and here we go. I mean, we're talking about, are we going to have part-time professionalism in Irish rugby, which will still leave us as a third world rugby nation on the outside, while the big cats in New Zealand, South Africa, are pulling 80 grand a year? Our players, as Neil Francis says, are going to be on 20 grand. OK, keep their jobs, still be part-time rugby players. Whereas, you know, who has hijacked the heart and soul of this game? Is it the agents? I mean, the Brian Moores, the Will Carlings of this world, who have got to them first to prompt them into saying, we want to professionalise this game? And I mean, let's face it, when the agents get in there, it's going to be like Billy the Kid going gunning for the Milky Bar kids of this game. Whenever they get in there and they put their hand on it, the game's finished, and we're going to have the Eric Cantonas, we're going to have the Vinnie Joneses going out there and damaging people for money, for a cynical purpose. That's it.
Well, let me talk to Billy the Kid, Mike Burton.
Well, you saw an example there of Neil Francis, an intelligent, articulate, well-presented man who was satisfied with 20,000. The two boys here, obviously there's one professional man who, for those reasons, can't move away. This young scrum half, who's come to my attention before I saw you tonight, is also a very good cricketer. I know all about you. You know, these boys now need some guidance. Even the administrators don't know what they're doing. So what chance do they have? Someone comes along and says to this young scrum half, here's £10,000, a 4-year contract. With the Jean-Marc Bosman decision we've had the other day, a club anywhere in the world, don't forget, the EEC, Ireland is a member state. You can't restrict, prevent or distort the competition for jobs and employment across Europe. These boys can go and play where they want to for the best going price. And we all do that every day of our working life. These kids, he needs to be told, don't sign that contract for 4 years for 10,000 or 20,000 because you've got no money now. He needs to come to me, and I said to him, you're going to get 100,000, and then you're going to get that spread over 4 years, and at the end of it, you're a free agent. Because in the middle of it, after 2 years, the club can make a fortune by selling him. Did he know that? Right. Everyone has a right to be represented.
OK, Mike, thank you very much indeed. Does anybody agree with Jim? I mean, has the heart and soul of rugby been hijacked?
Yes, absolutely. I agree 100% with Jim. And he's perfectly right in everything that he says. It has been hijacked by people like Rupert Murdoch and Louis Late, and may God help the future of the game if its morality and its care is in their hands. And what took place in South Africa during the World Cup, when Mr. Late was paying lip service to the preservation of amateurism, and as is supposed to be an amateur game, he was one of the people in there with the moral responsibility to keep it so. At the same time, he was flitting over and back to London, doing a deal, and here we come to the morality, doing a deal with Murdoch, a deal that has excluded 3 nations, such as Fiji, Western Samoa, and Tonga. And how anybody cannot see the inherent danger in what has taken place and what's going to take place with the new competition in the Southern Hemisphere, I don't know. And that's my main worry.
Yeah. Trevor England, former international winger. What about this, I mean, the talk about Irish, the squad, they might get £20,000 a man. Do you go along with that? Should they be paid? Do they deserve to be paid?
I think I'd agree with Jim McDowell to a certain extent about the game. And certainly the players are going to lose an awful lot by the amateurism going out of the game, but I think we have to deal with what is real, what is the real situation at this time. And the reality is that professionalism is here, and so we have to live with that. And I think it's sad to hear that structures aren't already in place from the RFU to actually deal with that. The players are saying, we don't know what we're doing, we don't know where we're getting, or how much money we're getting. I think what we have to look at now is that we're actually creating a level playing field for the Irish players to compete upon. For years, other teams have been in a better position to train, to prepare themselves for matches than the Irish team. Now we're given the opportunity to actually pay our players, and I don't think for the top players in the game in Ireland, we should be going on a semi-professional line. We should be going for a full professional line and saying, right, you're going to be able to put as much time and commitment into the game as any of the players in the rest of the world. And we are going to compete as an international team with those other teams. Yeah. And
so it keeps us in pace with them as well. OK, well, let's concentrate now on the clubs. We've been talking about them. How will the change affect them? In a recent poll, all 11 teams in the All-Ireland League First Division said they couldn't afford to pay their players. So financially, what prize professionalism for the clubs? Mark Forsyth has been finding out.
So, a new season, great hopes, great expectations.
I don't think any of us realistically believed that they were simply going to say, pay everybody, and whatever way you like to do that.
Talk of professionalism in rugby might be lighting up the eyes of the players, but for the clubs, thoughts of scraping around week after week just to find enough cash to get a team out on a Saturday have created not just shockwaves, but the start of an earthquake.
At the end of the day, it may be the case where just we can't survive. We don't want that situation.
We are just struggling through. Just to keep our doors open it's a big challenge for us. We are all amateurs, and then they're expecting us to come into this professional game.
The fear for the clubs? Well, on average, it costs a team in Division 1 more than £50,000 a year just to survive in the league. Match that with gates even in Munster that only average around £3,000 a league game. At £45 a head, that's a maximum of £15,000 per week. OK, there is the bar and sponsorship, but for most of the clubs, it's a struggle to keep afloat. And that's for the best supported clubs in the country. Elsewhere, the situation is even worse.
CIYMS doesn't really have the money. It wouldn't have major sponsorship, and it wouldn't have the big gate receipts that perhaps some of the clubs down south enjoy. So really, if we're asked to pay players, we would be in a very difficult position.
The money is not there, in my opinion, that if your senior squad put in its demands that they wanted so much per man for so many games or whatever, I'm not so sure that the clubs could, any club, could immediately say, yes, we accede to that, we agree to that, and from next week's match, you'll all be on whatever it is a man.
And even the Division 1 clubs are adamant that they just can't afford to pay. Not surprising, considering most of them were in the red at the end of last season. The fans too foresee problems if Irish clubs are backed into the pay-for-play corner.
The players then will cease to play for pleasure. They will be at the beck and call of their clubs.
I don't think here there is the money in the game to justify it. The Southern Hemisphere pushed them into it, and I would have liked them to have thought a bit longer about it.
I still see it as a sport, pure and simple, and I would like to think that players will see it in that light as well.
I can't see clubs like Ballymena, who have been very strong clubs on an all-Ireland basis, being able to generate the type of money to give players any substantial amounts.
For now then, it's as you were. No change for the clubs at least until the end of this season. But by next year, pay for play with contracts, bonuses and transfers could be here to stay. Hard to the players, but at what cost to the clubs?
What cost indeed? Well, we can go back to our Cork studio now, where I'm joined by Brian O'Brien, who is the manager of Shannon, the All-Ireland League champions. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Jackie.
What do you make of all this, the way it's shaping up?
It's a bit of a morass at the moment, but I'm sure it'll sort itself out. From a club point of view, I think we're taking a very narrow... The dimension is portrayed very narrowly, because we seem to be talking about the chosen few. And we're forgetting about the myriads of players down through the country in every junior club from Skibbereen to Donegal to Connemara who put a lot of time into the game, and all they get out of it is the players they produce at the end of it.
So this is very elitist, is it?
No, I wouldn't say that, not at all. I would say that I don't know how we're going to administer the clubs at that level if they see a lot of money being paid to an elite few. But after saying that, I feel the clubs themselves, particularly my own club, I don't think we can ever afford to pay players as such. I mean, if there's some sponsorship comes into the deal and they benefit from that, so be it.
So even on your big gates down there, you can't really afford to pay the players?
Well, on our big gates, I can tell you what we do with our big gates. Whereas we're in the process of buying another field at the moment, 5 fields in effect, and it will cost us about £750,000 to develop it. Where are we going to get that money? I don't know. But it's all for players, and out of those hundreds of players that we put through our hands throughout the year, 1 or 2 emerge up at the top, and the best of luck to them when they do get up there.
Do you feel that the All-Ireland League will be revamped because of this? Do you think it should be?
Well, there's a lot of thought went into it initially, and I think a little bit more thought will have to go into it. There's a lot of pressure on players at club level, interprovincial level and senior level, and I see it at international level. So maybe if we could fit it into 3 categories, club, province and country, it's easier said than done, but I'm sure that's the way it will go. But I'd just like to mention one thing. The clubs, as far as we're concerned, still are and always will be the soul of the game.
Yes.
So if I had any suggestion to make, I would suggest that 5 or 10% of a levy be put on sponsorship and jobs, to create jobs for these guys who are not in the same position as the people who are up at the top at the moment.
Right.
And we have a lot of that from the Munster area, you know. So.
OK, Brian, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Andrew Gribben is here, the chairman of Portadown, causing a bit of stir in the transfer market, inverted commas. You were trying to sign John Olumu, is that right?
Well, half the lies that tell about Portadown aren't necessarily true, but Portadown over the years have been fairly strong on the administrative side, and we've put a lot of time and effort into developing our resources and our facilities. And during that time, I suppose we thought that by doing that we would attract the right calibre of player to help us in the game. That didn't necessarily happen, and a lot of our younger players were attracted to other clubs, some of the more senior clubs, for a variety of reasons. A few years ago we decided that we were going to have to take a more proactive, professional, with a small p, approach to recruiting players.
You've lured a few players. I mean, how have you done that?
Well, as I say, we've developed our facilities. We now have a first-class gymnasium. We have a manager in the gymnasium who carries out fitness assessments on all the players. We do a lot for the players. We provide them with a kit package. We make sure that they're looked after when they're going away on matches. We look after young players who are coming in who need jobs. We work very hard at keeping the players happy.
Now, let me open it up. I mean, all 11 clubs in the First Division of the All-Ireland League, they're saying we can't afford to pay players. Surely that thinking will have to change, will it not?
No, it won't, if I can come in there. Oh, that's really misleading, what we've just seen. There's none of the clubs in Australia, South Africa, New Zealand pay. They all go to provincial level. If you could take the English clubs, they're much bigger setups. In Wales, you've got Cardiff, Swansea, Llanelli, all big clubs. Here, the thing will be based on the provinces. The clubs would be feeders. It would be very, very difficult to go professional. I think it would be foolish to do that. And so what they have to do here is to base the whole professional setup around the provinces playing and inter-provincial, and I think that'll fade away in 2 years as well, because they'll go into a European competition where you get big gates against the north of England, London counties. You'll find Toulouse and Béziers and Narbonne coming to play here. I've been responsible for bringing many big touring teams here, Transvaal, Northern Transvaal, who lost to Ulster here last year. Griqualand West are coming here shortly, Transvaal are coming in again here this year. They all have come into Ireland, they all get hard rugby, and those games always very, very well supported. 14,000, 15,000 people here at Ravendale to see those games. So you would get the crowds, you would create the revenue, and you could pay the players.
Yeah, so really you're talking Club Ulster, Club Leinster,
yeah,
but
the clubs have nothing to do with it. It's a complete red herring.
The clubs might want something to do with it. We've got a referee here tonight, Stephen Hilditch. Stephen, you have some concerns, I think, about the future of the game.
No more than anyone else here, I'm quite sure. I think the key was mentioned earlier. This has happened. There's no point in arguing as to whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. It has to be accepted. And the management of change is the key to it now. I have a concern that there are gifted and most talented players who may not wish to commit themselves to a professional game, who are perhaps, they are professional people.
Will they become part-time professionals?
Well, I would be bitterly disappointed if I felt Irish rugby excluded people who were not going to sign themselves up lock, stock and barrel to some sort of international contract and commit themselves for a number of years. To that, I think Ireland traditionally has accommodated most different outlooks and aspirations, and I think it should continue to do so. But it's critically important that people recognise there only are three sources of money. You get it from television, you get it from sponsorship,